Welcome back to Flashpoint, taking a deeper dive into some of the races here this past week. First up, the Senate race, Bud winning with 51% of the vote. We talked about that. A lot of folks say it's because of a place like Anson County, about 90 minutes southeast of Charlotte, that typically Democrats have done better. Sherry Beasley only getting about 46% of the vote compared to, say, Joe Biden just a few years ago, who got 52% of the vote. Two of the congressional races now, District 13, the one swing district here, Wiley Nickel beating out newcomer Bo Hines. And then here in our neck of the woods, an interesting one, Jeff Jackson winning with 57% of the vote. That's southern Charlotte as well as Gaston County as well. A really interesting takeaway with those two wins as well. The North Carolina delegation now in the U.S. House is evenly split for the first time in a long time. 7 Democrats and 7 Republicans. A big difference from what it's been in years past. Joining us now, Catawba College professor of politics, Dr. Michael Bitzer. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it as always, Professor.
Good to be with you.
All right, so here, at least on a statewide level, Republicans performed pretty well, won some of the big races, both statewide and at the General Assembly, but not so much on a nationwide level. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think some of the differences may be, of course, in turnout dynamics. What we know in elections since 2010 is that registered Republicans in North Carolina have the highest voter turnout. And it will take about another month to get that formal data back. But I suspect that yet again, this is the dynamic at play in North Carolina. Registered Democrats always tend to meet the state average, but that is not sufficient to be able to beat Republicans statewide. So yes, Ted Budd had a very good evening. Republicans won control of the General Assembly, supermajority status in the state Senate, 1 vote away from supermajority in the state House, and they claimed both state Supreme Court races that were critical to shifting majority control to the Republicans come January. So Republicans had a very good night here in North Carolina, not so much nationally because the expectations were much greater than the performance and the reality of what they achieved.
And it's not predetermined to be like this because Republicans here in North Carolina are outnumbered as far as registered voters go. Both unaffiliated and Democrats outnumber them. So it literally is, as you point out, just the fact that they actually get out the vote better than some of the other groups.
They have that dynamic, and the largest group of registered voters is unaffiliated at 36%, but they consistently have the lowest turnout rate compared to both Republicans and Democrats. So this has been a pattern in North Carolina politics. We are a stuck battleground state, but at the federal level, at least, it tends to lean to Republicans.
Does that mean, are we a purple state or not? Sometimes I say we're a purple state, and I hear from Democrats, they're like, no, we're not a purple state, we're a blue state. Then I say we're a purple state, and Republicans say we're not a purple state, we're a red state. What are we?
We are indeed a purple state. If you go back to 2018 and take all of the congressional votes, it was a 51-49 Republican lean state. This year with the U.S. Senate race, it was a 52-48 Republican state. Back in 2020, just 2 short years ago, we elected a Republican president, a Republican U.S. senator, and a Democrat for governor. We are the prototypical purple state, but at various levels, we have slight tints or hues to either red or blue.
Some would say we're electorally erratic at times and unpredictable. What lessons can we take away from Tuesday as we now go into 2024?
I think the big question on the Republican Party side is how much real influence does Donald Trump have within presidential politics, particularly for that party? And will Republicans start looking around for another potential standard bearer, someone like Ron DeSantis, who had an overwhelming performance in Florida, beating the Democrat there soundly? I think he will use that as a projection election tool to say, look at me nationally, I can win in Florida. Florida has been trending more and more Republican, but he can make the claim that he won decisively when Republicans nationwide, and particularly Trump candidates, fail to do so. For Democrats, they are looking at this election and saying, you know what, Joe Biden may not be such a bad presidential candidate to begin with because he was able to limit the damage done to the party during this midterm. I think that they will take a second look at Biden. Biden is hinting that he's going to run again. There will be some grumbling within Democrats because he is so old, but I think he was able to say to, in 2022, I was able to help the Democratic Party, not hurt it.
I want to talk about the Senate race just real quickly. When you look at the candidates that Democrats have run, whether it's Sherry Beasley, for a brief moment, Jeff Jackson, Cal Cunningham, Kay Hagan back in the day, they've tried a variety of different approaches and short of some sort of unicorn, what would it take for Democrats to actually win a U.S. Senate seat here?
Well, I think they need the right electoral environment. This year was indeed advantage Republican, so any Democrat running was going to have significant headwinds against them. I go back to the standard mantra that I talked about earlier, and that is simply turnout. If you turn out your voters at levels that rival or equate to your political opposition, you will have a fairly good chance of winning, making it more than just the margin of victory within the margin of error of the polls. And I think for Democrats, particularly with 2024, a open seat governor's race is going to be crucial in this state, presidential election year. So the dynamics present themselves, but they have to start thinking about now. How do we prepare for 2024 and get our ground game in such a situation that we can be competitive with Republicans and try and figure out the unaffiliated voter?
All right. Michael Bitzer with Catawba College. Professors, thanks as always. We do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right. More Flashpoint after this.